Now, I don't gas up my wardrobe enough because anytime I throw on this shirt, there's just an extra layer of confidence, which I don't know if it's supposed to provide the adverse effect. I mean, I'm wearing an anime tee, for God's sakes, but seriously, like, there's just some clothes in your wardrobe you throw on, you're like, yo, today's gonna be a great day. This is that shirt for me. This is my good day shirt. Ladies and gentlemen, stop me if you heard me start a video like this before, but this one was supposed to release a little bit sooner. I wanted to dial in on my Hellblade 2 review, as I always do when I get early access, which has become exceedingly rare. Hopefully that'll change in the coming months. But also, I wanted to take a day off to myself last week. We've been going a mile a minute. I'm about to travel in a couple of weeks for Summer Games Fest, where I'm going to be go, go, go mode for a while. We got a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon, a lot of big coverage planned for you all. So we're going to be firing on all cylinders soon. Wanted to just take a moment to breathe. I'm going to try to take another moment to breathe before that trip, just because we got to prepare a lot of things for Retro Rebound and Rewind. So what I'm trying to say is this was supposed to drop on May 15th alongside the update, but I didn't really have the time to get around to it until right now. But I'm glad I took my time getting to it because I've been dabbling with it for a couple extra days in turn, and this has really turned into a bigger retrospective because we're 7 months into the game's lifespan. We're just south of the Xbox Summer Showcase, where undoubtedly we're going to learn more about Starfield and its future between free updates as well as Shattered Space, and that's going to really paint a clear picture of where we're going with things, especially when there's rumors of a PS5 port floating around, which I think is an inevitability. I don't know if it arrives this year, but nonetheless, we have a lot going on with Starfield, and this is a good time to pause and analyze things when the game just got its biggest and most meaningful update yet. When I say meaningful, I mean it's actually adding gameplay elements, gameplay changes, adjusting to feedback that has been given since the launch of the game. This is not one of those massive patch lists that's just full of bug fixes and quest changes. This is legitimate gameplay changes, and some of these are pretty spectacular in my opinion. I know I was already on the more positive side with Starfield, but yeah, I gotta say, some of the things added here, better. And it's a good sign because little adjustments like this are going a long way for me. I don't know if it's going to go as long for some of you out there. We'll get into that, but it's a sign that if they can adjust to some other things that they've received a ton of feedback on, exploration will be in a good spot. So we'll see. But ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the full picture here. And that full picture includes a look at today's sponsor. I don't know about everyone else, but I am tired of disingenuous information being spread, and I want to know exactly where it's coming from. And that's why I'm here to tell you about Ground News, where you're going to see all these articles give you intense coverage details, bias distribution, factuality rating. You can compare the coverage. You can see all of this, even a blind spot feed, which are news stories that are disproportionately covered on one side of the spectrum. All this is available here on Ground News. For example, we've been talking a lot about Xbox news and what's going on with their changing business. It's great to have a site like Ground News where I can scroll through and see all the various different stories that are available. Who's saying what? Where's it coming from? Same thing with Starfield, what we're talking about in today's video. What's going on with this game? There's been so many hot takes. What's the actual information? Ground News was created by a former NASA engineer, and it gathers related articles from more than 50,000 sources around the world in one place so you can compare how different outlets cover the same story. As someone who encourages the mindset of reasonable minds may differ, I really love what Ground News is doing here, and I like encouraging critical thinking. So what are you waiting for? Go to ground.news/MrMattyPlays to give it a try. If you sign up through my link, you'll get 40% off the Vantage plan, which is what I use to get unlimited access to all the features. I think Ground News is doing important work, and I hope you'll check them out. I want to begin with the May update, which adds some significant things, and just kind of go in order of what impacted me the most as I was playing around. For starters, this dialogue camera. I know some people call this Bethesda jank. I call this immersion. I absolutely love the free dialogue camera. You know, it's funny. Before the launch of Starfield, I got what they were going for, and I was totally on board for this kind of Oblivion-style dialogue system, especially because Bethesda upgraded their animation systems. I know Starfield's kind of aged like milk already in that department. I will completely agree with people on that. But when you looked at the standards for Bethesda Game Studios animations, it was low, and understandably so, because they were doing so many other things in their games. So when you saw Starfield pull the camera in close and characters were acting more human, I was like, okay, this makes so much more sense. You want to make that the focal point. But eventually you learned Starfield is an incredibly dialogue heavy game. Some quests just involving strictly talking to people for extensive periods of time it becomes disengaging, fatiguing even, as you just stare at the same person forever. When you have the world active around you as you're engaging in dialogue and the camera not automatically moving, but you controlling it, there's an immersive factor there that reminds me a little bit of how I feel with Cyberpunk 2077, though I think Cyberpunk does it way better, especially with the first person view, the hand movements, the things they do in between while talking to you. It's so immersive. But I think Bethesda Game Studios, what I didn't realize with their conversation systems is really dating back to, I'd say, Skyrim. The natural desire for people was for Bethesda to get more and more cinematic with their conversation system. You know, Skyrim moved our industry forward in so many ways that it was okay the conversation system was how it was. And then Fallout 4 tried to add a little more cinematic moving of the camera. I actually think this would be great in Starfield. I think it would fit really well, but then again, your character doesn't talk, but a couple of camera movements for when people are talking to you would be awesome. But this free flow dialogue system here works really well for me because it maintains the immersive factor. And I don't think I really understood why I appreciated it until it was gone from the game and then re-added as an option. So I hope moving forward in other BGS titles, this continues to be an option. Yeah, this was like the #1 thing I loved. It added so much. It just felt more like a Bethesda game. I don't know how else to put it. Then they added gameplay options. This panned out extremely well. I thought Starfield always played as a good shooter, but that's not why I play BGS games. I love the exploration. I love the unique pieces of loot, something they're just doing less and less nowadays. So with the weapons I do get, they feel good, but now we need more unique properties. Hopefully they get to that in more free updates and expansions and all that stuff. But at the bare bones here of this gameplay option system, you get to tweak the enemy damage. You get to tweak the enemy damage both in ship as well as on the ground. You can change when you can save the game, what heals you, how often it heals you, how slowly or quickly it heals you, how fast you gain afflictions, and so on and so forth. I mainly use this for damage tweaking. I increased how much damage I put out, and I increased how much damage enemies put out. And I know I made this comparison before when we were looking at the May update, but it really does play like the realistic damage mods in Fallout, where you just do a lot more damage, but the enemy does the same to you. It increases the intensity of encounters in Starfield, and it works really well because you can kind of balance things out. As you change these options, you're going to get more or less XP. My multiplier is still at 0% because the way I balance things out, I increased how much capacity I can have in my inventory and my storage space as well, because I'm so tired of being encumbered every 5 steps in Starfield. So I love the options that they've added here, but more importantly, it's that damage. It makes the encounters and the fighting so much more fun. I was actually using weapons I never pull out. For example, I always go to the Beowulf. This thing does a ton of damage. It's semi-auto, so I don't burn through my ammo too quickly. Like, everything just dies by this thing. There was never a reason for me to eventually switch weapons. Sometimes I'll pull out the Experiment A7 shotgun. That's good just because it's satisfying as hell to use, but I never really had a major use for it. With this damage mod, I was using my silent sniper rifle. I was stealthing way more. It just totally transformed how I approached the game. So in a game that does a lot of shooting, I think this added a lot to the experience. It may not be exactly what you're looking for, but I just want to say, for me, this did a lot, as did the frame rate mode. For those of you who don't know, most of, well, really all of my playtime is logged on my Xbox Series X, so they've added the ability to change a target frame rate, and when you go to 60, it switches to a performance mode. So I did a little bit of fidelity testing, if you will, like talking to characters in conversation. The difference is there in my experience, and I will completely admit my eye is not super well trained where I notice every little single detail here, but I go on sort of the feel factor. Did I feel anything different? Did I notice anything different? Did the game look off? Did the picture on screen look terrible? Did it look muddy? Did it look glossy? The answer is no. I thought it still looked like a great game on consoles. I know on PC you can get your 4K and your 60. I get it. I've said this before for those who are wondering. I like my console gaming because I'm always working at my PC. So for me, going over to my TV or to my projector to do some gaming in different rooms, it helps me break things up. It keeps the excitement up. It keeps my energy up. It's a really important thing for me just on like a mental level. So that's why I do things that way. So to have a good 60 FPS mode in Starfield, we all knew they could do it. I don't like that it took so long because they were kind of acting like, oh yeah, you know, we're figuring things out. We wanted to focus on something steady, but this 60, it's been steady. It's been fine. We knew it was possible. It's just on Series X though, so keep that in mind. Last but not least here, we do have the brand new city maps that have been added. And as well as that, you have icons for every location within these cities. So I tried it on Aquila City. I gotta say, this is cool, but this isn't really a complaint of the system itself. Like, let me get this straight first. It works, and it works totally fine. For me, though, with the state of exploration and content, where we're at in Starfield's lifespan, this is nice to have, but it feels, I don't know, useless. Like, I never used the map in Starfield, quite frankly. I would mark the quest and then use my scanner to go everywhere. And whenever I wasn't using a scanner to go somewhere, I would open up my quest menu and fast travel where I needed to go. Famously so, right? That's what the game has its poor reputation for, among a few other things. So it's good to have, and I'm not downplaying it. It's just right now, as the content stands, kind of useless. Like, whenever I fire up this game to get gameplay for y'all, well, look, it's just kind of like I'm chasing whatever's in my quest log. I'm not looking at the map, seeing locations and checking out places unexplored, because as we already know, the exploration in Starfield is not great. And so that kind of leads me into, you've heard this one before, what they need to fix. And it's got to be the exploration and the content. I already think this is in a good state on a technical level. I think these gameplay additions here are really good. Like, they really grabbed hold of me, and I stuck with Starfield for a long while. I haven't played it a ton since launch, but this is the first time I sat down, played it, and went, I'm having so much fun. So this can add a lot to the game, and that's just the start of it all. So it has me optimistic, but to really push this game over the top, to really get it to the point that we all wanted it to be in the first place, they've got to figure out exploration and content and finding things in between. It still sucks when I drop down on Aquila, for example, and I'm looking around and I know all of the areas surrounding these cities. There's nothing. It's all procedurally generated. It really sucks the life out of me with this game, because now you're in a spot where your game is fun to play. You have tools to aid in exploration, but your exploration itself is not great. And so I'm really crossing my fingers that they've figured something out. We already know bounty hunting of some kind is on the way. Vehicles are on the way. I'm really pumped to try these out, but I hope they figure something out to add life to some of these key planets. I don't think it's possible to get all of them, but I think some of the major ones, I know Neon being the exception because there's just water surrounding it, but I think some of these planets do need more key locations, especially the ones that you are going to be visiting. I know you've heard it before, but playing this game, it's just a reminder. I'm like, this is fun to play. I love the vibe. I love the atmosphere. I love a lot about this game. You just got to let me do more things and have that sense of discovery that you're so well known for. So it shouldn't be too hard for them to figure out. Other things they add in this update, ship decorating. I'm not great at this thing, so you're going to see some of the most embarrassing ship decorating ever as I'm just kind of testing the functionality of the system. This is really cool, though. You can add new parts to your ship that are completely empty that you can fully decorate yourself. It works exactly like it would in the settlement mode. You can even put down new crafting stations. And I will say, this is something I am going to spend a little extra time with, because for me, I don't care about the settlement system in Starfield. I found it useless, slapped on. And what I will say is I'm going to use it now because I'm in my ship way more than any other settlement ever. So yeah, this is just one big update, and it's added a lot for me. From me, I should emphasize, just because I know everyone else is in a seemingly different spot than me, it feels like, but as someone who enjoyed the game, I felt like this enriched it a lot. For those of you kind of riding the fence, I'm not saying, hey, go download it, this is going to change everything for you, but this is a good, meaningful step forward for those of you who are remaining patient or who are on the outside looking in, thinking about it. Just know things like the frame rate mode, things like the dialogue camera, new gameplay options do a ton for this game. I still hope they do a dedicated survival mode. I think the mechanics are there to make a really compelling survival mode in Starfield. I think the options are limitless. That's why I'm really rooting for the game, because I'm like, you guys are already almost there, in my opinion, with just one big update, and I can't wait to see what they do next. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts down below. What do you think of the current state of Starfield? What are you most looking forward to in the future? Again, for me, it's that exploration, especially when you're adding vehicles. You have city maps, like you have the point A to point B, you have all of the tools for traversal. Great. We need stuff to go to that's extremely compelling now. So I'm curious to see if they ameliorate that at all. But I'm looking forward to hearing from you. What do you think? Let me know down below. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.